We're 20 minutes into the reading, and all of a sudden I hear audibly, not in my head, but audibly, the words, "I'm so sorry," from a female voice. And I said to Brooke, I said, "Did you hear that, Brooke?" And she said, "No, I didn't." "What? Hear what?" I said, "A female voice just said the words, 'I'm so sorry.' You didn't hear that?" And she said, "I didn't, Ruthie." And I said, well, of course, I figured it must be the mother. And I said, "Do those words make any sense to you, or with someone you may have lost?" And she said, she started crying. And she said, "Yes, my mother." And I said, "Well, I knew you lost your mom only because I felt her presence when I was praying for you." And I said, she said, "Those were the last words she wrote. She wrote those words in her suicide note."
People say to me, "Can I get a second reading?" There's a huge difference between pets and people in spirit in that respect. So when pets come through, they tell me their feelings, their experiences, their love, and any messages they have for their pet parents. But humans are different because humans in spirit, to me, they see our lives changing. Pets can only remember what happened when they were there, and they don't understand what's happening now. Humans can see what's happening now. They can continue to give different advice as we age and go on. And I think that's why it's really important for people who keep coming back to Ruthie to get more readings and more help. I tell people, once you've had one pet reading, you do not need another one.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey.
Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
Get ready, listeners, for some psychic stories of high strangeness from two of the leading psychics in New England and, probably in America. We are reunited with Rob Gutro, best known as the Pet Psychic, and his good pal and brother from another mother or sister from another mister, Ruthie Larkin, also known as the Beantown Medium. Both have been on my show a few times. Rob's almost like connected to me at the hip. He's been on so often, but always a great guest. So, buckle up and settle in as we cover high strangeness from familiar places. Rob and Ruthie tell us stories you need to hear to believe. Also, speaking of high strangeness, check out my YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just Google Afraid of Nothing Podcast. Subscribe. Our subscription's been going up, but I'd love to increase it more. So, anyways, appreciate all you do and enjoy the show. All right, I am here with a couple of my very special paranormal pals, but it's been about a couple of years. I think it was actually more than a couple of years. I think it was the end of 2020 when we needed to do a podcast on positive vibes, Rob and Ruthie. You both have been on my podcast in the interim, but not together. So the gang is all back tonight. So I would like to welcome Rob Gutro. Rob, you're on almost as much as Kyle Carvin, my sometimes host. I'm almost going to make you a co-host, I think, after tonight. And then Ruthie Larkin, who was in my movie, The Afraid of Nothing podcast. She introduced me to Kyle way back when. So I am going to welcome you, and I'm also going to ask each of you to introduce the other, which I think we did a couple years ago. So, Ruthie, I will start with you. Please introduce Rob Gutro and what people should know about him.
Here go the details, Rob. Get ready. Actually, Rob and I have known each other for about 14 years, and I feel like without him, I would not have actually been a medium, because he led me down the path of no return. Basically, he taught me and made me aware and more and not afraid. But anyway, Rob is he's a scientist, a meteorologist. He just retired, and he has been a medium for as long as I've known him, and I'm sure a lot longer. But he is the best pet reader of anyone I have ever come in contact with. But he's also one of the best human beings I know. He's always thinking of others. He's always helping others. He's the guy that goes to the neighbors and cuts their grass or goes shopping for them. He's that guy. He's one in a million. So I can't say enough good about him. And I love him, of course.
You know, Rob, if I knew this about you, I would have had you move next door to me versus where you moved in. So, all right, Rob, that's a pretty good intro. So why don't you introduce Ruthie to our audience?
Yeah, gosh. Well, Ruthie is, as she said, we've known each other for about 14 years, and it's such a gift to know somebody who is super gifted. Ruthie is, she's a psychic medium. She's a Reiki master. She's a medical intuitive. She's a certified energy systems management practitioner, and energy therapy practitioner. And she was rated one of the top 100 psychic mediums in the U.S. And there's a book on that, so you can look her up. And whenever I meet people who want to get the best reading with humans, I send them all to Ruthie. I don't want to talk to humans. I just want to talk to pets. So that's it in a nutshell. And she is my sister from another mother.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I've met both of you. You're incredibly awesome people, as well as super talented. And it's a pleasure for me. I'm not going to have you introduce me because I can't live up to what those two introductions. But let's just start with, you've introduced each other, but when did you guys meet for the first time? Ruthie, do you remember this? Was it in person? Was it at an event? When did you two cross paths for the first time?
Over the phone, because our mutual friend had introduced. She said, "You've got to get to know Rob, because he's a psychic medium, and he's also a scientist." And so we set up a conversation together. And I don't remember how long it went, Rob, but it was so enlightening to me, because you made me understand how this really works with energy. And you opened up my mind to acceptance. And that's what you did for me. I never would have done a thing with these gifts. People call them gifts. I call it for what it is, which is all about energy. But I never would have accepted it without you. So we had a wonderful conversation that first time. Mm-hmm. I think it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, it was quite a while.
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't it great that he's in New England now, Ruthie? Isn't that good? He's not as far away.
Yeah, I'm dying to see him in person now that he's closer.
He's busier than ever. Everybody else has scooped him up. I know. It's like, yeah. So Rob was on my show last time. I was having all these sorts of internet problems, and it turned out to be the fault of Xfinity. It wasn't me. It's what I thought. So anyways, that's been ironed out. So I was with Rob and Monique too soon. I thank you both, Rob. Tell Monique for your patience, because it kept cutting out. And I'm like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's like a Verizon commercial. Can you hear me? But actually it came out to be a really good show. Rob, you had mentioned when we were kind of offline about that you've had something really new happen to you in terms of it's almost like a level up in how you do your readings. You bought a new piece of tech equipment and something happened that very much surprised you. So you want to talk about that first event that happened in that pet reading?
Yeah, I did. So I started using a microphone, because when I start connecting with pets, it really gets crazy, and they give me so much information that I can't type fast enough. So that's when something happened. So what happened was I was in the middle of a reading with the dog, and I turned off the microphone because the dog was starting to tell me about how the night he passed, and then he stopped, and I said, "Okay, I can't hear you." Because I stopped the microphone. I'm like, I can't hear you. I don't know what happened to you. Well, right after I turned the microphone off, I watched typing come out on my screen. And this is what typed. And these were five different lines. One was the number 2018. And there was something that 2018 meant to the pet parent, as it turned out. The other things that it said was, I'm not going to be able to get back to you. I'm not going to be able to get back to you. And I'm not going to be able to get back to you 3 times. So what that meant was he was thinking that when he was in the hospital, he knew that it was his time to pass, and he was not going to be able to get back to his pet parent. Because after these things typed out, Bob, then I had to ask the dog, what in the world do these things mean? First, I had to get over the shock of watching things type on my computer by itself.
Was he a good typist? Because I'm pretty bad. I'll misspell it.
Well, so apparently what happened is he turned. He must have turned on the microphone, but I had turned it off. So the third thing he says is, I'm going to be in the middle of the day. And what he meant was he's going to be in the middle, going into the light, because a dog would perceive the light as daytime.
Yeah.
So that's his next message. Then he said it wrote the same thing out 5 times. I'm going to go to the bathroom. and I'm sitting there and I'm okay. So I asked him about that, and he said when he had to go, that he would tell his pet parent that he had to go. Like, okay, when you got to go, you got to go. And the 5th thing was that typed out was, I'll be home. And what that meant is that after he crossed over and he met the people and the dogs in spirit that were connected to him, he will come back to visit.
Wow.
It's really the strangest thing I have ever seen happen in a reading. I've never seen a spirit take over typing.
And I remember that. Was it the same night that you sent you told your husband, Tom, and I think you sent an email to me and Ruthie too, right? Was it that same? Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, it's like
because I was so freaked out by it.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it's happened. That dog was called Leroy, right? That was the dog's name.
Yes, I believe that. I believe that was
Okay,
Leroy.
yeah.
Yep.
And then it started happening again, right? It happened with other pet readings too.
It did happen with another one. I have to think about it for a second. So, why don't you come back to me on it?
Okay,
while I look for it.
Ruthie. All right, so Ruthie, it's been a while, right, between us, but you have had, the last time we talked, there was a guy named Bob Poseel. He had you were helping him with kind of loving the afterlife, and we did an episode on that. But you mentioned you've had some other kind of interesting things happen. So why don't you give us a couple of your more interesting? Because look, psychic mediums, you guys have so many things, you almost forget most of them, right? Because so many things you do every day, and it's like so many things pass through you. But the ones that stick with you are memorable. So what's one or two of the more memorable ones you've had in the past couple of years?
Well, one is extremely memorable, and you're right. I think, they all start to run together after a while because they're not our thoughts. So it's hard to remember exactly what happens unless it was something bizarre, or sometimes I actually finish with the reading, Bob, and I just shake my head. I walk out of my reading room and just go, Spirit is unbelievable. I can't even believe that happened. And I had something like that happen about 1.5 years ago. Totally new to me. And in fact, I even reached out to Rob to ask what he thought after it happened, because I had a new client, and I get a lot of new clients, and I have a lot of young people, and I have all ages, but a lot of times young girls in their 20s will pass my name around, and they all want a reading with me. So I knew this girl was in her 20s because she came from the same group. And I had never read for her before. I only get first names. That's all I need. That's all I want. And Her name was Brooke, and I pray before every reading I do. I think you know that about me. I'm very faith-based. I wouldn't call me religious, but I would call me extremely faith-based. So I was praying for her before, and many times I get messages while I'm praying for a client, and I was a vision or a message, and I felt her mother all around me. I thought to myself, oh, this must be why she wants the reading. She wants to talk to her mother, and she's young to have lost her mother. So I always ask a new client, so what can I do for you today? What led you to me? And she said, I want a life reading, not a heavenly connection. A heavenly connection would be getting connected to her mom. But I never said a word to her about the mother. I never said anything. I thought, well, she wants a life reading. She's going to get a life reading. And that's all about her life, future events, past events, and present events. So we're 20 minutes into the reading, and all of a sudden I hear audibly, not in my head, but audibly, the words, I'm so sorry, from a female voice. And I said to Brooke, I said, did you hear that, Brooke? And she said, no, I didn't. Hear what? I said, a female voice just said the words, I'm so sorry. You didn't hear that? And she said, I didn't, Ruthie. And I said, well, of course, I figured it must be the mother. And I said, do those words make any sense to you, or with someone you may have lost? And she said, she started crying. And she said, yes, my mother. And I said, well, I knew you lost your mom only because I felt her presence when I was praying for you. And I said, she said, those were the last words she wrote. She wrote those words in her suicide note. I'm so sorry. So I said, well, do you want to go on and get the reading with your mother? Or do you want to continue with the life reading? And she said, definitely my mother. So bottom line is, at the end of that reading, we connected her to her mother, no problems. But at the end of the reading, I said to her, you recorded this reading, correct? I always tell my clients to record the readings because they're going to forget most of what I said. And she goes, I did. And I said, I heard your mother audibly. She's got to be on the recording. I said, we were about 20 minutes in. Give me a text back and let me know that you heard that. She texted me back 15 minutes later. She goes, it's as clear as a bell, Ruthie. And she said, I even had my aunt, who was her mother's sister, listen to that part. And she said, oh, that's your mother, all right.
Wow.
That was the first time that has ever happened to me. And I reached out to Rob pretty quickly, because when you have something so out of character, you just want, I said, what do you think's going on? And he said, I think you got an upgrade.
Wow.
It has never happened again. And that was 1.5 years ago. But I mean, I've had spirits talking to me, calling my name and that. But this was a very different situation.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is an Afraid of Nothing paranormal podcast alert. $10 merch. $10 merch. That's right, podcast fans. If you go to our website, afraidofnothingpodcast.com, and click on the store tab, you too can find now $10 merch on the website. So not only can you get the great stuff like the hoodies and the t-shirts and the blankets and the glasses, you can also get stickers and bumper stickers and, well, a whole lot more. You need to see it yourself. But just remember this. $10 merch is now available at the Afraid of Nothing podcast store. Check it out. And remember, never be afraid to look good.
I don't want to say it's your specialty, but a lot of times people come to you because they've lost children, right? Or I don't know if that used to be when I first met.
Every day.
So it turned into that. That's kind of interesting. All right, we're going to circle back quickly to Rob. Rob, did you find what we're talking about, the second story?
I did. And it happened It happened, I think, a week and a half after the dog typed out all those answers. This time, Bob, it was a cat. It was a cat named Simba.
Wow.
Passed away at 16 months old. So the cat was very, very young. I was using the microphone to convey the reading, and I got to a stopping point, and I actually put the microphone down. It's a handheld microphone that's connected. Tom was downstairs sleeping. There was no music playing. The two dachshunds that were in the room with me were snoring softly. And then suddenly the cat used the microphone to type a message to his parents. To me, it felt like this was typing, and it wasn't like the dog's response, because the dog repeated it like 5 times. This was just one thing. So after I had stopped typing and I put the microphone down, the computer typed by itself, and I watched this. If you want to do it, you can do it. And I knew immediately that was a message from Simba, the cat, getting help from a human spirit. And that was a message to Simba's mom that there's something going on in her life right now, and she needs to believe in herself. And the mom confirmed that.
Do you think when this typing comes through, do you think like the pets on the other side with a headset, or I know it's obnoxious, but I mean, are they like talking into a microphone, or are they typing, or how do you think, are they thinking, or what's your thought about how that happens?
Well, because their energy, coupled with their memories, personality, and the knowledge of this life they live, as energy, they can manipulate energy. But I think in this particular case, as opposed to the dog's case, that this message was actually through Simba, but it came from a human spirit on the other side.
Huh. And I just want to ask, I know you do a lot of things. You're in a paranormal group out here. Have you thought about bringing your computer with you and the microphone and seeing if you could have that happen on some of the investigations you've been doing around here?
No, I haven't, because when I go on those investigations with Monique Toussoun, she uses an instrument called the Phasma box, and it's something similar. So whenever earthbound ghosts or even spirits who've crossed over have a message and they're transmitting it telepathically, the Phasma box will pick up on it, and it will actually audibly speak it through your computer. Okay. So she's got that covered. She's the tech guru. I just use my head.
I mean, that's just something you could see it like a Blumhouse movie or something, of that type of scene where you're at your computer and it starts typing back to you from your pet. So wow. How did you feel when that happened? Were you unsettled? How did you feel?
I was like ready to push my chair back and go, "Hey, Simba, go at it."
Okay. All right. Well, at the second time, right? Probably the first time, though, did it just... Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, the first time I was very freaked out because, the dog wrote things 3, 4, and 5 times. The same thing 3, 4, and 5 times. So, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. So it's happened twice. All right. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still use the dictaphone when you're on going forward on all your pet readings, and it's just kind of sporadic if it happens going forward, or you just use it sometimes?
I do use the microphone, and then I turn it off when I'm not speaking, although that didn't matter with the dog because it was off and he still did it.
Wow. Yeah.
But I do it because I have like carpal tunnel, and it's easier to dictate. Plus, like I said before, they come in so quickly, and they're like 3 to 5-year-old kids, dogs and cats. They have a very short attention span. So I can be talking about how the dog felt before they passed, and suddenly they're saying ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you mentioned that before in a prior podcast, that dogs and cats, they always kind of age out at like a toddler or a young child. They never get to like human equivalent of adulthood.
Yeah, and they have the attention span of a toddler.
Oh yeah, my dog is exactly like that. But she's never off the leash. So Ruthie, one of the things we talked about with a mutual friend of ours was an interesting like spiritual journey where they go on a point in their life and something happens for a reason and it takes them to where they're supposed to be. So do you mind talking about any clients that you've worked with and what a spiritual journey is and how that's different from like a life reading?
Yes, I pretty much get into that with most of my clients for a life reading because people are they don't understand why things happen to them. And I can tell them typically why something has happened, something either fantastic or something not so fantastic. It's definitely part of their journey. And before we're born, we're spirits. And when we pass, when we die, we go back to being the spirits. But we make these commitments and agreements with our spiritual family members. And our spiritual family is just huge, of course, much larger than our biological families. I like to use the analogy that Dr. Brian Weiss uses, and that is that you compare yourself to being on an oak tree and you're a leaf and thousands of leaves, and all the other leaves are members of your spiritual family. And because people that we know, that we meet, that may even come into our life for 15 minutes, but have said something very special to us or made us think of something or made us do something different. These are all people that are spiritual members of our family. So the people that are the leaves on the same limb as you, the leaves that are on the same limb, are your very closest spiritual family members. Like Rob said, we were like, he's like my brother from another mother, and he is. So I'm sure we're on the same twig. Sorry, Rob. And I probably talk him half to death every day. I'm like talking to him, but anyway, that's how it works. You know both, but Rob and I very well. I'll guarantee it. We're close spiritual family members. So there's always a reason why things happen. We figure out what we want to accomplish in this life, and we come here to love, teach, and learn. That's it. But there's always a major reason, something we want to learn. We learn much quicker as humans than we would as spirits. It's a different type of learning. Many times when somebody, will pass and they haven't accomplished exactly what they should have here on earth, they'll have to repeat that. It's all part of their spiritual journey. But I do help people understand why, the whys and why nots. And they feel a lot better. And I can usually tell when people reach about 50, they start to wonder about their spiritual journey. They start to feel different. And I'll bet Rob sees that as well. They all feel like they're at some kind of a crossroads. Why are they here? They start asking themselves questions. And I can really help with that. That's where I get a lot of guidance from spirit, lots and lots of guidance.
I always wondered, why am I here now? And this was before all the weird stuff was happening in the world recently. And now I'm kind of like, well, maybe I'm here at this point, as well as you and Rob, for a reason, because there's something happening that we'll be a part of and we'll witness. So I'm going to ask you both. Like the Pope died, passed a week or so ago. And there's been a lot of weird stuff going on in the world. I mean, even in New England right now, there's I don't know if you've heard about it, Ruth or Robbie, but there's rumors of a serial killer. They've been finding bodies all over the place. I'll start with you first, Rob. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed kind of like a weird lowering of a frequency or a raising of a frequency around you with all the stuff that's been going on?
Well, honestly, since the year began, the energy level has been lower to me, and it's been more, people are more, they seem more afraid, they seem more unsure, and there's a lot of negativity. But I don't focus on that because I focus on pets. They're nothing but love and positivity. I think that we all have to be a light in the darkness, and I think that's the role that I think I'm called to play, and certainly Ruthie and you, because you, Bob, as a result of what you're doing, you are educating people, and education is the foundation of a successful life.
You know what I think of myself, Rob? I'm not a light, but I'm a light fixture. I plug in you and I plug in Ruthie, and then the light comes on for everybody else. So, all right, okay, that's interesting. So it's been. What about you, Ruthie? What have you been? You have a lot of people coming to you and certain levels of angst, probably, and looking for some type of sign or guidance. Has it been different? I mean, I would imagine since 2020 when we did that one about the optimism and the light and all that good stuff. How has this year been and among your clients that have come? What is it? Is the world around us vibrating lower, or is there an awakening going on where it's higher?
Both, because the world is definitely vibrating much lower. And people are scared, just like Rob said. They're afraid. I hear it every day, and I hear from all different types of people. I mean, I have I have talked to everyone, priests and ministers even. And that's always shocking to me that they want to talk to me, but they do. And as a result of the low vibration that's going on, people are becoming more aware and becoming more anxious, but more aware. But fear is definitely a primary feeling that's going around. And it's sad. It really is sad. But at the same time, the world has opened up. People are becoming more spiritual every day. I see it every single day. People call me for an appointment that would never have called me in the past. Never. I think the fact that I look at things a little bit different. I don't leave my clients either. I always follow up with work that I've taken probably every class in the world. So I always like to help. I think of myself more as a spiritual therapist, to be honest. And I can help them through their journey, their spiritual journey, or help them connect to their loved ones. But they are very, very nervous. That's the word I'm going to use, very nervous.
And are they finding you? Are they, as usual, right? It happens. I'm trying to remember how we connected because there was something about my daughter and my website. You remember how we first met, Ruthie? I mean,
I think I met you at my workshop, didn't I?
Well, you invited me to your workshop, but before that,
I have no idea. Yeah. I don't remember.
And when I was at your workshop, you noticed a lot of things. I don't know if you remember, but you noticed there was a lot of people around me or something. I don't know if you remember that at all at your workshop.
No, I don't. But I remembered I liked you immediately.
Yeah, and you went to my website. You were going to be in my documentary. I hadn't met Rob yet, and you saw like there's a reference of the ghost in Emily's crib, and then you checked out that video and you shared stuff.
That's right.
And by the way, Emily's 17 now. My oldest daughter is 19. She's going to go to college next year. So yeah, it's crazy how things go.
Wow.
Yeah, and one thing I remember from the documentary is you mentioned at the end that it's all love when you go to the other side. Some people think
100%.
There's all, so I think you believe in reincarnation, and I think you believe it's just all love on the other side. It's all love and forgiveness. And some people don't believe that. So I was just curious if you could share why you are so optimistic and positive and why you're so helpful to parents who lose a child to suicide, and you comfort them that it's not their fault. What would you tell people waits them on the other side and that they have, afraid of nothing to worry about?
Well, what I say is, as I speak the truth, first of all, I never lie, and I never lie about anything like this. It's too important. So, first of all, once we pass the human, we leave and we transition over to spirit, we are all about love. We have left our human emotions back. Now, they have to show me who they were so that I can tell my clients, because if I say, they're all about love now, my clients wouldn't know who I was talking to. So they show me exactly who they were, what they said, give me absolute definitive things that were done and said when they were living. But they're all about love now. It's all love. It's universal knowledge, universal love. So when parents come to me, the most important thing I can ever tell them is give them enough evidential information to let them know their child is okay. All parents just want to know their kid is okay. I don't care how old they are, whether they're 4 years old, 2 years old, or 25 years old. It doesn't make any difference. once I can let them know, and the kids tell us what they're doing, and it's usually something that they were doing here on Earth. They usually take that with them, whatever experience they loved or whatever they liked, or they might have a favorite toy. When they're buried with the favorite toy, they always bring it to me and show me. So I can tell the parents, oh, they're showing me a bunny. There's a little bunny. And they're like, oh my God, we buried him with a bunny. And so they just want to know that life goes on, and it does go on. And I tell my clients that it's like a piece of cellophane between us and spirit. That's how close we are. So when we think of someone that has passed, all we have to do is think of them, look at a picture of them, touch something that they touched or wore, and immediately it's like an SOS goes out to that spirit, and they're right with us. And I make a joke of it. I say, I don't care if they're in Vegas having a blast. You're thinking of them, they're going to be with you. Spirit has absolutely no limitations. They can actually be in more than one place at a time.
It's almost like, I was going to say, Rob, with quantum physics, spooky science at a distance, where if a particle splits or whatever, one half across the universe, no matter how far away, and the other half, if anything happens to one, they kind of both know it. Things happen at the same time to them. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it sounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rob, you heard Ruthie and her take. Have you and Ruthie ever had a deep conversation over wine or chocolate or whatever, or over the phone at night about what you see on the other side versus Ruthie? Is it similar, or is there differences?
No, it's quite similar. So I just gave a fundraising lecture yesterday at an animal rescue, and everybody wants to know what the other side looks like, where their pets are. And I said it's the same thing for people. I said, we all go to the same place. I look at it more like from a scientific perspective, as energy. To me, it's just energy that's like a great white light filled with peace and calm and love. And I've learned from talking to spirits who crossed over, there are 3 levels on the other side, but there may be more. This is my experience. And people choose what level they're going to go on. For those who did not live a good life, they go on the lowest level. For those who lived a decent life, they go in the middle level. And if you achieve perfection, which I don't know anybody who has, you go to the top level. And spirits can interact on those levels.
And can they interact between the levels, or is it like, a floor in a building, you can't go down to the lower level? No, is there...
Yeah, no, they seem to be able to, because they're on the other side, they're all connected to that same energy, so they can interact. However, what I've learned is that people who choose to stay earthbound as ghosts in the fixed location of their choosing cannot interact with spirit.
That's right.
Otherwise, the spirits on the other side would help them cross over, and they can't. So I don't ever describe the other side as a physical place, although I know that sometimes spirits on the other side will say, oh, let my mom know that, I'm laying out in the sun, I'm running through the grass, I have all the toys I ever wanted. I'm talking about pets, of course. And the reason they do that is because we as humans can't picture what it's like to be just energy and feel love. So humans need a visual, like a rainbow bridge or something like that. So to me, it's energy and love on the other side.
Now I'm going to get back down to, I know I'm kind of navigating a little bit, but now I'm going to get back down to this world, because you have acclimated yourself very quickly to new. It was last summer, right? Was it last summer that you moved here?
2 years.
2 years? Okay.
Yep.
All right. But why don't you tell us stories from one or two of your favorite haunts that you've been to since you've moved out here?
The thing I love about New England is that people here, this was the earliest part of the country that was settled. And, we had the witch trials in 1692 and all that up in Salem, Massachusetts. But people have always been more open-minded about what lies beyond or mystical things or magical things. I have found, moving to the northeastern U.S., that people are much more receptive to the paranormal. They're ready to believe if someone can explain to them things, especially using science, because I use science to explain how the paranormal works. So it's been a tremendous difference to me. As for my two favorite haunts, well, I will have to tell you that one was the Emery Estate in Weymouth, Massachusetts, that you and I discussed with Monique.
All right. Yeah.
Crazy. The other one is a place called, and this is kind of a preview, the Hunt Memorial Building Library in Nashua, New Hampshire,
Yeah.
which was the site of our book signing for Emery Estate, and we did a paranormal investigation. And oh gosh, there were 3 incredible ghosts there. And that book, by the way, comes out January 1st, 2026.
All right. Cool. Yeah, don't spill the beans too much. Make them go back and listen to the last episode about Emery Estate. But I mean, that place was so powerful, you couldn't go and stay in certain rooms. You had to, it was a little too much, which kind of reminds me of when Brad Hudson, the shaman who has since passed, unfortunately, when he was at the S.K. Pierce house in Gardner, Mass., and there was a room up there. He went in and he almost started crying, which is kind of weird to see because he's such almost like a biker type guy. He's a woman, an aide or a working person who was impregnated and had to give up her child. It was a really dark story. And he saw that person in the corner cowering, and other people had seen the same thing. Have you been to the S.K. Pierce house, Rob? Have you been there yet?
I have not.
It's up for sale now. About 2 miles down the road from me. And, I knew the people that renovated it. And when I did my documentary, we filmed part of it there. Yeah. I mean, now it's up for sale again. So somebody, hopefully it gets a good buyer, that buys it. When it was sold before, like 4, 5, 6 years ago, it was in kind of rough shape, and it's gone through a wonderful restoration. And it looks really nice, and it's really cool. But there's tons of activity there. I'd be interested to see. I have to go. Maybe you have to go there sometime. And Ruthie, you too, because it'd be interesting to see what you pick up there. Because I'm familiar with a couple of different areas in that house where there are certain things, and I'm wondering what you might pick up.
Rob,
it's not too far from Winchendon, Rob. It's right down. It's not too far from where you were with Monique. You remember? I don't know, a couple months ago or whatever. It's not far from there.
I love it when I do something like that with Rob. We haven't done that in a long time. Maybe we should do that.
We should do it this summer. That'd be nice, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
I know, Rob.
Yeah, my favorite adventure, Ruthie, with you was the Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. when we both met John Wilkes Booth.
That was wild, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You got to tell us a little bit. You got to give us a little teaser. Did you write about it in a book?
Oh, yeah,
Rob,
I did.
I
think it's in my first book, Ghost and Spirit. Or no, Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. One of the two. I don't know.
That whole time with you was amazing because you talk about that, but then talk about going into the hotel.
Oh,
and the ghost was in the bar. Remember?
Yeah. So Ruthie had many more experiences. She's much more sensitive than I am. And Ruthie, there was one hotel, I think it was the Biltmore in Baltimore City, that you saw the lobby as it looked in like the 19 teens.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And then you found the pictures that confirmed it, right?
Yeah, there was a picture hanging in one corridor, one hallway, Bob, and it was exactly as she had described it. And we had just walked into the front door, so there's no way she would have ever known that.
Wow. And we were walking down the street, and all of a sudden everything changed for me, and it was as if we were in the early 1900s. And I saw everything the way it was then, and I didn't know what happened, and you explained that to me.
Was that like a time slip, Ruthie, or what? I mean,
what it is, it's old energy, and I have the ability, and I didn't know how it happened to me. It just happened. And he told me, he says, you have the ability to go back and, find out what happened in the situation or see something the way it used to be. And so I do that with the police. When I work with the police, they might take me to a place and I have the ability to put myself in that. It's like pushing a little button in my head. And I can see who the person was with when he was last seen. I can describe them. Sometimes I get a name, a first name, or even a last name. It just depends. But Rob really got me through that because it frightened me at first. I had no idea what happened. I turned around to talk to him. And all of a sudden, the whole entire town switched to the like very early 1900s, late 1800s.
Yeah, I just, poor Rob, when he goes to these places, he's either being shot in the chest or being burned alive or being hung
Oh
from
my
a rope.
gosh, yeah.
For our audience, look, if you haven't listened in prior episodes, you've missed out because Rob is, Ruthie certainly is very good with humans and she can be very more sensitive to it. But Rob picks up when he enters how the spirits passed. And when I say he picks it up, he feels how they passed.
Yep.
And it's like, it's not the best feeling, I guess. Is what you say,
No,
right,
it
Rob?
is no. I don't like the reason they share pain of death is so that they can identify who they are. There was one I haven't talked to you about yet, Bob, but it's in an upcoming book about the Linwood Manor Bed and Breakfast in Maryland.
I think I did a show on that. I think I did a show on that, actually. Go ahead, tell what you can, if not, or at least tease the book.
It's not, yeah, the book's not out yet. It will be.
It's the Linwood
Yeah.
Manor, though, right? It's the Linwood Manor. I did an episode. I talked to the owners, Rob. They were very cool.
Yes, they asked me to come do an investigation with Tom and Troy Klein, that you know, and we ran into a menagerie of ghosts. But in one particular case, when I went in the backyard, there was a ghost that came out. It was a woman, and she came running out of the house, screaming, and suddenly my head felt like it was on fire. And I didn't know what was happening.
So, Rob, that was you. It's actually you're the one that introduced me. Then I'm sorry. Is that correct? Were you the one that was on that episode or not? On the
I
Linwood
think
Manor?
we were. Bob, I don't know.
I know it's like they kind of piece together because I'm the same way. It's like, but I almost wonder if it was you with the introduction. But yeah, that's a great place. I'd love to go down there at some point. Yeah, there's a lot of very cool stories about that, which you'll probably uncover in your book. But that's a wonderful, wonderful ghost story. That place.
That reminds me of a time, Rob, when we were down the Cape in that old place. Remember what was the name of the place?
The Masons Lodge, the Masonic Lodge.
Yes, the Masonic Lodge. Oh my goodness, that was another place where there was a lot of negative energy, and
Dead people.
we all felt it. Do you remember that?
I do. We walked around before. Yeah, because you were doing a show there.
You were too. We were doing it together.
Yeah. I was doing the animals. You were doing the humans.
And we had the I got there early and I saw this ghost standing in a corner of the hall. And when you came in, I said, Rob, just walk down that hall and tell me if you see anything. And I saw him perfectly. But you got his name and the date. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I can't tell you what his name was because I don't remember it.
No, but I saw him the way he was dressed with and we couldn't go in that one room. That one room, there were a lot of really bad things that had happened in there. And the minute either one of us started to go in, we backed out of it quickly.
Yeah, that I do remember.
That was an amazing time.
I want to ask you both a kind of slightly dark question. Has there ever been a client that came to you where they were pure evil and you didn't want to give them a reading or just got like a really bad feeling that they'd done something really wrong?
One time, just one time. And I really, because I make sure, even when I do a show, and there's maybe there might be 10 tables, 10 filled tables with people, and there might be one table that I won't go near. And that's because the negative energy is just screaming at me. And I will not go near that table. And for a person to have only one time, and it was over the phone, so it was a phone reading. Wow. But I really didn't. I just didn't even want to finish the reading, but I had to. I mean, she paid for it, so I had to finish it. But just one time, and it's really hard to see that because when someone has that much negative energy, it's best not to be around it at all. Sure. But I remember after that one time, Rob, when you and I were down at the Masonic Lodge, that when I got out of there, I was covering myself with positive energy, and my friend and my car, even I was really took a lot of measures to make sure I didn't leave with anything negative.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we do that, because we have so much positive energy, we make sure we have it. We, like Rob said, he tries to always stay in the light. I know that about him, and I do too. That it's very hard for it to sit with us for any length of time. But we have to be careful.
So, Rob, on the flip side, have you ever had someone want to do a reading where, maybe the dog didn't love them, where it's like, oh, God, Jesus, will you get this person away from me? I'm in the afterlife. Did you ever have a situation, or was it always someone missed their pet so much and that their pet loved them, unconditionally, or was there ever not quite that bond that you picked up that the owner may have had stronger than the pet had with them?
Well, I've had a range of things. So some pets weren't close with one of the pet parents because they felt threatened by them and just uncomfortable, and it stemmed from abuse from a previous home. So there's that kind of discomfort. But in terms of the humans that come to me, on occasion I will get a human that says, "Look, I don't believe any of this stuff at all. So I don't think you can tell me anything, but I'm gonna ask you for a reading." And I have honestly responded. I said, "Look, if you're bringing negativity to it, you're not going to be happy with whatever I give you. So I am not going to do a reading for you."
Oh.
Well, my friend Dan Miller was a little bit like that. He was a little kind of on the skeptic side, and then you kind of floored him.
But skeptical is okay. But when when you're telling me I'm not going to believe anything you tell me,
right? Yeah. That's way too much. Yeah,
it's like, why would you come to somebody that is a medium that would try to help you and tell them that you don't believe them before they even get started?
Rob, you know what? They really want to be turned around.
Yeah.
I turned them around and I showed them the door.
Okay, wow. There you go. Boom. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Just kidding.
I had an experience just like that about 6 weeks ago. I did a show. It was in a home. She had about 15 people there. Actually, it was in a restaurant. And this one girl, she was the fourth reading. She came up and I spent like 10, they're short readings, like 10 minutes. And they have a choice between a life reading or a spiritual connection. And she came up and in the very beginning, she had said, "Oh, I don't believe in any of this." And I said, "Really? So you're a skeptic?" And she said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Well, I welcome skeptics because I do." And so when she came up, I said, so she had watched 3 people have a reading. And I said, "So are you still a skeptic after what you've seen?" And she said, "I am." And I said, "So these people, you've seen this and you're still not believing?" She goes, "Well, I don't know them." So it took about 2 minutes for her to start crying like crazy because I said, "Well, what about the brother you lost when he was 23? And she started crying, and I told her the whole story.
Wow.
And I said, and I told her what she asked him. She keeps asking, I said, "You keep asking him, where are you? Where are you?" And I repeated everything. Well, it made my day because that night she texted me very late at night and she booked a party. She booked a show for her own guests.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know, but that's our job. So don't show them the door.
No, if they're hostile, I will tell them that they're not in the right frame of mind.
I know, but you can turn them around with no problem.
But for my closing question, I was going to ask: there are skeptics out there, and probably for good reason, because there are some con artists out there.
Oh yeah.
So, what would you give each of you? I'll start with you, Rob, and then you, Ruthie. A couple pieces of advice for someone that wanted to seek out. First, explain the difference between a psychic and a medium and kind of what they would get from each one. So, Rob, can I start with you first?
Sure. In my mind, a medium is one that communicates with people or pets who passed. Mm-hmm. A psychic is one who has different abilities. They can tune into the energy of the past, present, and future, so they can tell you what you did, what you're doing, and what will be best for you. in the future. To me, that's a psychic. I'm just a medium. So,
But they can't read the future. They can only suggest things to you for,
yes.
but the outcome, there's so many different outcomes that could happen, but okay, cool.
Yeah. So Ruthie's best equipped to answer that because she's a psychic and a medium. And I am just one of the two.
Okay. Well, before we go to Ruthie, what would you recommend? I'm sorry, I'm sitting far away from the mic. What would you recommend to someone that's interested in a pet reading? What should they seek out from someone if they're going to look for someone and they want to find someone like you? What should they look for?
Well, first I would ask them to do some homework and look for testimonials and so forth. Listen to podcasts and see if you like the person, if you have a connection with the person. The second thing I would say is that you have to be open-minded, and you can't come to the person and say, I'm not going to believe anything you say, because you've already closed your mind, and you'll never get a reading that will satisfy you.
Mm.
Also, there's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to spirit. Everything happens because spirit will make it happen, and you have to believe that. And Bob, I've had many people that they will send me an email with a picture of a pet and say, "What's my dog doing now?" without even researching my name, giving me a greeting, figuring out who I am. What do I charge? So do your homework. That's my recommendation to people who want to figure this out. And that's why I wrote books. Yep. I wrote the 4 Pets in the Afterlife book so people would understand how it works, how your pets communicate. They don't even need a medium like me. They just need to be observant, and that's what they can get from what I've done.
And how to handle their grief, how to manage their grief.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Ruthie, psychic medium perspective. What should people try to do to make sure that they get the right psychic medium that they're talking to?
Well, I have never advertised in 14 years, never. And if you're doing the job correctly, and you're not just all about money, and you're about really helping people and helping people understand, that makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I have never advertised says, I think, a lot. And I think Rob, a lot of his advertising is just through the wonderful books he writes. So but they're from him. It's like being in touch with him. And I always tell people, if any medium or psychic tells you something very negative, get up and walk out and don't pay. Especially if they tell you that someone on the other side who has passed really hates the fact of something you did. Mm. Or they're angry at you. That doesn't exist on the other side.
No.
I've been doing this 14 years and I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Never. So it's really, and I do hear a lot of stories that are negative, of people going to someone that they shouldn't have gone to, and they end up, if anyone's telling you, oh, you have a curse on you, forget it.
Gosh.
I have had so many people come to me who have paid thousands of dollars to get rid of a curse.
Oh,
this never happens with a real psychic medium. Mm-mm. Never, ever. They will not do
or that you need to work on stuff with them. You have to keep coming back to work on stuff, that they need to have you come back and work on a bunch of things. I think, that's my guess. I know you probably have people to visit you many times.
They do. My clients all come back. Yeah. And I have over 11,000 of clients, and they all have had at least 2 to 3 readings from me. And some of them have 10, 20, 30. But everyone comes back at some point. They all do.
So, Bob, can I interject for just a second? Because it's different with pets. People say to me, can I get a second reading? There's a huge difference between pets and people in spirit in that respect. So when pets come through, they tell me their feelings, their experiences, their love, and any messages they have for their pet parents. But humans are different, because humans in spirit, to me, they see our lives changing. Pets can only remember what happened when they were there, and they don't understand what's happening now. Humans can see what's happening now. They can continue to give different advice as we age and go on. And I think that's why it's really important for people who keep coming back to Ruthie to get to get more readings and more help. I tell people, once you've had one pet reading, you do not need another one. There's a big difference. From my perspective, I would not take your money for a second pet reading because your pet's going to come through and give you the same messages. They only saw what they saw when they were alive.
And do you think pets, like humans, are reincarnated, or they're just kind of a one-shot deal?
Oh, no, we all come back.
Okay.
We usually come back once everybody in this life has passed.
Have you ever seen Buzz or heard from Buzz?
Oh, I hear from Buzz all the time.
But in another incarnation, has he come back at all, do you know, or is he still...
No, he's waiting. I saw him actually waiting in the light when Dolly passed in 2020.
Interesting. Wow.
He was standing there,
Wow.
yeah. And and I just funny you mentioned Buzz because it was just last month that I finally realized he's been sending me the repeating number of 222 since he passed, and I kept thinking it was Dolly because Dolly uses all the other repeating numbers, but 222 is that's the date that Buzz passed, February 22nd.
Wow. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been an amazing episode. Rob, we'll start with you. Please tell us where, how they can get in touch with you and give them a reality check about how much of a wait it might be for a pet reading and where they can get your books. And I think really they should check out your books and listen to some podcasts before they do a reading, like you already mentioned.
Yeah. I would suggest that everybody check out Afraid of Pets in the Afterlife, because that was the podcast that you had me on for the very first time. And I think it helped break some records for you. So yes, I've written the series of Pets in the Afterlife books so they can read how pets communicate, learn for themselves. And then if they want a reading, they can contact me through robgutro.com. Yes, I have a 1-year waiting list, but I do my best to accommodate people. And I do a lot of events. I do a lot of lectures and events, so they can find me there too.
And is that on your website too? Does your website have what events you're going to be at? Okay, excellent.
robgutro.com or petspirits.com also goes to the same place.
Perfect. And Ruthie, how long do I have to wait to get a reading with you? How long is that usually?
It all depends. If you're one of my clients, I would fit you in right away. I would squeeze you in somewhere. But if you're one of my regular clients, I never make them wait more than a month for sure. But I always find time. I always leave 3 spots open every single week for people that maybe it might be an emergency and they might have been referred to me for a special reason. So best way to reach me is through my website, beantownmedium.com. I have request forms on my website. So, and I'm going to start doing something a little bit different. I do spiritual workshops right now, mini spiritual workshops that last like 3 hours for yoga studios. So I'm going to start bringing those into the homes of people that might want to learn more. So I'm going to be starting them. So that's going to be coming out on my website.
That's great.
Too.
All right. So 2 of my favorite people, 2 of the easiest people to talk to. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Ruthie. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to actually doing an investigation with you and many more conversations in the future.
Thank you, Bob.
That would be great. Thank you. Bye-bye. And Rob, I'll be talking to you.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode, and the world will know how swell you are.